Spanish moss is almost obligatory for creating a southern scene. Silvery and soft, the plant blurs the edges of the harsh swamp, or provides a creepy feeling, depending on your perspective. It was also an important plant to Native Americans who made textiles from it, added it to clay to strengthen pottery, and used it in the production of their homes. They also know of medicinal uses of the plant, such as producing a similar substance to insulin that may be beneficial to diabetic patients. By the immigrants, it was used for stuffing for mattresses, furniture, and car seats across the country, becoming one of Louisiana's most unique industries. Contrary to popular belief, Spanish moss is not a parasite on live oak and cypress trees. It is a bromeliad, which is the same family as pineapples, and retrieves its nutrients from the air. It only thrives in wet climates with 60 to 100% humidity typically, so the southern United States and the Caribbean. It's also been introduced in Hawaii and Australia. But the origin of the name Spanish moss for the plant that is neither Spanish nor a moss is a mystery. Or is it? This is the origin of Spanish moss. According to the Encyclopedia of Word and Phrase Origins, quote, the familiar Spanish or long moss, Tillandsia usneoides, which drapes from live oak, cypresses, and other trees from Virginia southward, is not a moss, but an epiphytic, or a tree-perching non-parasitic plant that takes its own nourishment from the air and does not kill any supporting plant, as many believe. Contrary to what the great Linnaeus thought, it does its best in moist locations. The Swedish botanist was so sure that the plant disliked moisture that he named the genus after his countryman, Elias Tillandsia, a physician and botanist traveler who so feared water that he once walked 1,000 miles out of his way to avoid crossing the narrow Gulf of Bothnia. Why the plant is popularly called Spanish moss has not been determined. Unquote. Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist who is known as the father of modern taxonomy, lived from 1707 to 1778, which is well after the Native Americans began using the plant in their textiles. Neither Britannica nor Wikipedia explain the vernacular name for the bromeliad. The National Park Service gives us deeper history and a supplement to a lesson plan for students in northern Florida. Quote, what is that gray hair-like material in the trees? When the French arrived in what we call America, they asked the same question of the Native Americans, and the natives replied that it was tree hair, or itla ocla. The French used their own imaginations and called it Spanish beard, because it reminded them of the long black beards of the earlier Spanish explorers. Over the years, the name took on what some people thought to be a more sophisticated name, Spanish moss. Unquote. This information is sourced to a website for St. Charles Parish, Louisiana that doesn't exist anymore or is cited incorrectly. I found other references to Itla Ocla. Some say it is a Choctaw phrase, but most just claim it is Native American. I couldn't find any primary sources for Itla Ocla. In his article, Clad with the Hair of Trees, A History of Native American Spanish Moss Textile Industries, Max Carochi interviewed members of the Homa and Coasati tribes of Louisiana during the summer of 2007. He mentions that there are several native words for the plant, but doesn't give them. He explains, quote, people in Louisiana attribute the expression Spanish moss to the Creek Indians living in and around the swamps, who were apparently the first to use the term as a corruption of the description Spanish mustache. In Florida's popular belief, the association with hair is retained in the expression French hair that, in contrast to Louisiana folklore, is said to have been employed disparagingly by the Spanish colonists to describe their European neighbors. In contrast to Louisiana folklore, people in Florida associate the expression Spanish moss not with the local Indians, but with the French who called it either Spanish beard or Spanish mustache. Unquote. The earliest reference I found in the newspaper to Spanish beard was 1806. The earliest reference in the newspapers I found to Spanish moss was 1817. I couldn't find a single reference to Spanish moss as Spanish mustache with either spelling of mustache in the paper. According to a 1916 article in Scientific American, which forced me to sign in through my Tulane account instead of my personal email to view it, it was also known as long moss, black moss, or Florida moss. In a 1943 article in Economic Geography, we learned that it is also called crepe moss or wool crepe. I can accept that Native Americans called the plant tree hair and that there were probably many words for it in many languages, since it was important to their culture for textiles, pottery, and home building. It seems that it is well accepted oral tradition that the French named the plant Spanish beard, Barba Espagnole, when they arrived in the area. Why it became known as moss may derive from mustache, but I only found that one reference to that from the oral tradition of the Native Americans in Louisiana. It's probably just a misidentification, as there are so many different names for it with moss. From Spanish beard and long moss, both names that could be easily confusing to those unfamiliar with the terms, to Spanish moss, a term as incorrect as it is distinct. If you're interested in that Scientific American article from 1916 that wouldn't let me view it without a 2-lane email address, I've posted it to my Facebook account so everyone can see it now. Please like and subscribe for more tours and stories from the deep. Coming soon.